the torch to Mr. Corey, and
Sure.
he's got something that's really cool to talk about, and I do mean really
Yep.
cool.
Yep. Cool. So for the next one here, we're going to talk. We're going to move on a little bit to Rolls-Royce and move on over to air taxis again, which is a thing we like to talk about, and you guys apparently also are interested in. So this is basically saying that Rolls-Royce is now getting into the eVTOL game in the sense that it's going to help, or rather, supply the power plant for a company called Vertical Aerospace and their concept, the VX or the VA, excuse me, the VA4X. And it's if you got to bring it up there, Mike, on the bigger screen there.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's basically, as they said, they're gonna be powering the power plant that's gonna supply the energy to all of the electric motors for all of these nacelles where the lifting device or the props, right? Um, this company is one I had heard of, but hadn't seen much of lately. They've been around for a while. But now they've got a big player on their team. They've partnered with Rolls-Royce. And so Vertical Aerospace, again, a British company's got a big player on their team.
Sure.
A little bit about the VX or the VA4X. It's basically something that they think they'll be able to get production into 2024. Supposedly able to carry 4 people about 193 kilometers or 120 miles, and about 322 knots per hour, 200 mile an hour airframe, 200 mile an hour vehicle. So that's cool. I don't know. I suppose that range is estimated at like a cruise speed or maybe this maximum speed. I'd be interested to see what the implementation of what exact power plant Rolls-Royce is going to have in there. The
Hmm.
pictures of the device or their airplane or the eVTOL air taxi are pretty cool. They kind of remind me of like a slick Airbus, even like Bell
Sure.
kind of
Yeah, yeah.
mix. That I can't remember what the Bell's one was, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Bell.
Yeah, it's a pretty looking. It's
Um,
pretty looking.
it is pretty cool. I don't know if you want to bring up the animation from the homepage of Vertical
Oh yeah, let me do that.
Aerospace, and that'll show you really. It's a pretty nice animation. It shows you exactly how it's supposed to function.
Hmm.
And as far as it, as far as we can tell, they're saying that the first one of these prototypes, the first flight actually of the full size, not a small model or anything, but the first size of the VAX4 will be this year. And Vertical Aerospace estimates they should have it certified through the CA or EASA or however, whatever that ends up looking like over there, 2024. And so,
It's pretty.
as far as we can tell, they're marketing Europe. This isn't something that appears that's going to end up in America. If anybody's interested in that kind of news for the moment, not that I can see, but
You know what's interesting
yeah.
to me is that how many people are going to finally understand what Rolls-Royce has been doing in aviation for decades and never really knew how many aircraft they've probably been on in their
Hmm.
lifetime that have already been powered by Rolls-Royce forever. Because
Hmm.
most people think Rolls-Royce, you think what? Silver Ghost, you think the what is it? Was it the Corniche? Right?
Oh, the
The
Phantom, yeah, all
Phantom,
the
right?
the really expensive cars, yeah.
Now, if you want to talk about bespoke cars, there's the bespoke
It's true.
automaker right there. That
True.
is Rolls Royce. However, Rolls Royce has been instrumental for decades in aviation. Matter of fact, if
Hmm.
you want to talk about eVTOLs, short takeoff and landing aircraft, I believe the Harrier was built around a Rolls Royce engine.
Okay.
I've flown, I think, I got about 1,000 hours on aircraft with Rolls Royce engines on them.
Hmm.
So they're this is a good player. I mean,
Yeah.
however,
Yeah.
when we talk to the folks at Jet Terra and the couple of comments that they've made that they're looking at using APUs as a power source for using their
Yep.
technology, well, then it
Yep.
would only
Yep.
make sense that other people have already eyeballed the fact that APUs are a perfectly good generator of power. And when you're
Hmm.
trying to take all this stuff and make it fly, you don't want 6,000 transmissions from one place. And that's why Jet Terra also has a tremendous advantage is that they don't have a transmission that they have to make all this power go through.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
and if you're using individual nacelled engines off of an APU power plant, I mean, but
Yeah.
it looks
Less moving parts
yeah.
with still the same amount of thrust you need from however you generate. Just like you said, yeah, this vertical concept. I mean, all they do, they put probably the APU in maybe depending where they want to put the balance, but maybe right there in the tail where right after the rear wheels,
Hmm.
the mains. and then they just run cabling, right? I mean, high voltage cabling throughout the whole thing, right? Way better to run all those transmissions. I mean, it's something that really wasn't practical before without electric motors. And I mean, this is not nothing, no surprise really.
But doesn't it look
As far as
eerily
air taxis,
similar
but
to the Jobby? I mean, it's strange in the
in a
fact that
way,
it's strange
in a
the way
way,
that
yeah.
they have their nacelle tipping system is almost very identical. Their
Mhm,
wing structure is very identical. Their cabin looks very similar to
mhm.
Jobby Aviation's go with this. So that's kind of neat. Something that I'm going to keep an eyeball on because obviously there'll be competitors, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I mean, if you take a look at Jobbies and their whole setup, I was like, the first thing when you sent this to me, I was like, I've already seen Jobby, you know.
Oh yeah,
I've already
yeah,
seen
yeah.
their stuff. I don't need to see it anymore. And when
Mhm.
you look at the pictures of it in even just stagnant pictures, kind of just go, that's neat.
That's jobby.
That's Jobby because you kind of get the feeling like, oh, is it loading? I don't know if it's gonna. That's weird. Jobby just their whole website just crashed.
Oh, bye bye.
No, it's like the pictures won't load.
Whoops.
Oh well, I was gonna bring.
Okay, well,
Oh,
yeah,
it's
but
kind of it's
yeah,
trying.
I do agree with you there that there's certainly a similarity. I mean, we'll have to see. Yeah.
Now it's also interesting to me that Jobby they have an actual video of their CEO with their
Mhm.
aircraft in flight, and it's actually really quiet, which is amazing. However,
Yep.
the video and the fact that the way it was presented, it was like, well, I don't know if I want to show that because he doesn't really look at the camera. He
Well,
kind of stares off into nowhere.
oh, yeah, it's all
It
good.
was kind of weird. Let me see if I can bring this one up because it's not. It's weird that this picture just wouldn't come up or none of the job. There it goes. Ha, got it now. There it is. So yeah, it kind of's got. I mean, the Jobby's got a little bit more of a Hughes nose going on, right?
Mhm.
It's got a little bit more of that rounded, like an E model, like but
Yeah. Yeah.
retractable landing gear, tricycle style, tippable nacelles. Uh,
It feels like it would be for shorter hops than just the way the vertical aerospace looks. It just looks like a faster aircraft.
yeah,
And again, I would wonder about, they got some figures in here, of course, but I wonder about real world range, as it would be with the Rolls-Royce, of course. Now they're going to power with what, jet fuel, I guess, the APU or
hmm
the, whatever implementation they put in there. Where I mean, Jobbies is pure electric, right?
Well,
It's just different.
one of the things that's really interesting to me is that obviously if you're going to run an APU, you're going to run off of fuel. So one of the advantages here is that the longer you go in duration, the lighter this aircraft's going to get, and hopefully the more
Oh
efficient the
yeah.
vertical will be. And
Hmm.
it looks like now that I'm looking at the size difference between the two, and I'm really giving them a good glance over, it looks like the Jobby is smaller.
I would agree.
It
I agree.
looks like
It does
this.
look like a smaller overall.
It looks smaller. It looks like the Rolls is designed to be a little bit sleeker in that approach. And maybe you're right. I think it might have an advantage in the fact that it could go further distances at higher speed. Maybe.
Just like I said, the way with burning all the fuel and just to see. I mean, yeah, like I said, I'm just interested to see like what these figures actually end up being. Yeah, I guess is what I'm interested in.
So, and they didn't say anything about when they're going to release their actual figures or what their performance
For
numbers are.
vertical,
Yeah, for vertical.
they, from what I'm gathering, they unveiled this concept, the
Mhm.
X4, just last year, and they're saying they're going to have the first flight of it this year. So they're building it now, probably, and it'll be flying. How much of that goes public and how that works, who knows? But they say that they're building it this year.
Interesting. You know what I'm still waiting to see? The Bell Nexus. I'm
Dude, when did we see that at the Heli Expo? Like a decade ago
No,
or
we
some
we
craziness? It hasn't been
saw
that long.
it's I remember the first thing that they had was and this was really interesting what Bell did. If people are not familiar, Bell Nexus is basically their shot at the eVTOL market as well. It's still something that they're working on. It's going through their prototyping process. However, they produced a air taxi cabin that went to CES like 4 years ago. And I
Hmm.
remember you and I were sitting there talking. I was like, why did they bring a cabin to CES? Not the actual airframe, just the cabin, so people could go in there and play with the electronics inside. And I was like, that's kind of weird to me. Then I was like, I know why they didn't bring it to Heli Expo yet. Because they didn't want to piss off their customers that were buying new 407s and thinking that Bell's going to jet on us and go into the electric industry, right? But yeah, now I think that one debuted in 2017 at Heli Expo.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So, and look, you have Airbus has their city bus, and if anybody had this stuff flying beforehand, I would have thought that the guys that would have made the big jumps in this area would have been probably Bell and Airbus.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what that means. Who knows?
Don't know, man.
So who do you think's going to win?
Needs to be seen.
Who do you think's going to be the first one in the air carrying passengers?
Paying customers.
Paying customer.
I don't know, man. I mean, we know the big players right now, at least in terms of money raised, are Lilium and Joby.
Right.
With Archer not too far behind, actually.
Sure.
And there's so much buzz about Joby these days. They might be the first to actually carry passengers. I mean, it's like we talked about before when we talk about Lilium. I'm still hoping they can have some breakthroughs and really change. Have another option that really makes people think about what would work. But it's like we also mentioned with Lilium, we're both a little concerned and probably quite interested to know what happens when Lilium's starts, the inevitable failure of some component.
Yes.
What is Lilium? How do you glide a Lilium anywhere down to safety?
I don't know.
It doesn't look like it has any real lifting surfaces. And
it has some. I mean, it looks like it has ability. The thing is, to me, it's like I don't know how much lift that thing's going to create because it has that little forward canard. But depending on the light and depending on how heavy the aircraft actually is, it makes a big difference. Okay.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'm just curious.
And
as I troubleshoot and think about contingencies for actually being implemented, a big part of all this is safety. With any of the regulators, it's all like, okay, safety. Show us the safety data.
Sure.
And I just am curious on some of the less traditional designs.
I think what we're gonna find out is I think Joby, keep saying Joby, I think might be first to market, and that generally, and just because you're first to market doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be successful. Ford had electric cars, I think it was 20 years ago, and they scrapped them in California when they realized that this just wasn't going to be. Or maybe it was GM. No, it was GM, the Aurora project, right? I think it was the Auroras, but the other part of it is that, when you think about the ability for people to work out these problems that we know are going to be inherent to the ability for the air taxi service to grow, because it's going to be a direct challenger to helicopters. Although helicopters are more utilitarian in their approach, this is going to be the first time vertical transport might be available to the masses. I still have a little bit of money on Jet Optera of bringing up a victory in the long-term stay in the market because I think their fundamentals might prove to be sounder in their approach of using turbine power plants for both propulsion and airworthiness certification standards and just a few other areas where I think that they've got a little bit of an edge in that area.
Yeah,
a lot of work to be done.
No, I know we've talked about this a few times now, of course, with Jet Optera, but I mean, the solution there that they're having that is novel, but then at the same time proven, right?
Yes.
Maybe not in the application that he's doing, that they're doing, and that just wants me to know more about it. I'm not saying it's not going to work because it's already partially working already.
Yes.
But yeah, no, I definitely won't discount them in the long game, I guess I'd say.
Yeah, and I'm wondering now. Obviously, there's going to be. I'm waiting for the new players to jump in. That now that somebody threw $1.6 billion out to Joby, I'm sure we're going to see these other people come in and produce these. Like, look at GM. Like they showed up at CES with their quote unquote personal air taxi service, which was basically a rendering.
The Cadillac,
right?
The Cadillac, whatever. Yeah, we're like, what is this?
What is this? Like, like I'm waiting to see the other players that are going to go in for the money grab on the backside of this. But look, here's the difference. If people don't understand what it means to have Rolls-Royce enter this market and have a collaboration with another company that is fairly proven and have Honeywell on board and so on and so forth. Look, Honeywell makes like decent FADACs. Nobody knows the word Honeywell, right? You think Honeywell and you're like, oh, what's Honeywell make? Getting a commercial
They make
airliner.
a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Make a lot of stuff.
They make a lot of stuff. Get in a commercial airliner and then come out and ask somebody what a Honeywell's about. And they'll be like, oh man, the Honeywell. Because that's their FMS.
Yeah.
They'll know everything about it, right? If there's a FADAC, it's generally could be developed by Honeywell. If there's things out there that's working in the industry, Rolls-Royce has been in a lot of planes. If you've been on an Embraer, you've been on you've been powered by Rolls-Royce. So
Yep.
Go figure. Well, it should be interesting. Anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
That is good. Well, yeah, it is our